I was in charge of a retail store for the night. I recently got a new job there and I needed money badly, but most of the time I would be at school, so this was really the only choice I had. Anyways, I was behind the register reading a book when I heard the sound of someone entering the store. I looked, but I didn't see anyone anywhere, but it didn't really matter, so I resumed reading. But right when they entered, I started to hear this moan. It sounded like a kind of moan that people make when you're extremely tired. I tried to ignore it and hopefully it would go away, but 10 minutes passed with whoever that was continuing to do so. So I had enough. I told whoever that was to please stop with the moaning, but whoever that was didn't seem to get the message. So I repeat myself, but with a screaming tone this time. Then the moaning finally stopped. I was able to finally relax without any noise. But right when the moaning stopped, the lights in the store go out. My eyes were wide open after what was going on now. So I take out my flashlight and start to find the back. But as I did, I scanned every direction I was heading. Then I remembered about the customers still in the store. I called out if there was anybody that needed help, but nobody responded. It was a little strange, and now I started to worry for myself. So I continued to walk towards the back, and then I was able to find it. So I slowly entered the area, but as I did, I felt a sudden change around my environment. And then, right when I start to move, I hear the moaning again. But this was an employee's area, so nobody was supposed to be in here. I shined my flashlight around and couldn't find anybody, but I did manage to find the power box, so I sprint towards it, ready to open it. But right as I was about to do so, I suddenly felt someone grab my shoulder. I screamed from how tight and firm the grip was. Then I shined my flashlight at whoever it was. It turned out to be a woman that looked to be in her 40s, but she looked like she's been crying for years. I elbowed her repeatedly until she finally let go of my shoulder. Then I ran all the way out of the store and towards my car. I didn't even let the car start up. I booked it out of there. As I was driving home, I texted my boss and explained what happened. And as expected, he didn't reply, so I just went home. Early the next morning, I checked my phone, and my boss replied asking if I was alright and when he could talk to me. I told him I could talk right now. Then he told me that he was already with the police, so I got myself ready for the day. I drove back to the retail store, and I see two cop cars and my boss at the entrance. I gave them the full details on what happened the previous night. After I gave the police a description of what I saw of the woman, they weren't really the police could do about it. We didn't really have any footage of the act since the power cut. Then the police were on their way and said to call back if the woman returned. Then my boss let me take the week off as he understood what I went through. Then after that, everything went back to normal. I never did see that woman again, and I assume she's long gone now. I was the only one left at my job at a gas station for the night. I had to make up time I had missed work one time, so I was stuck at the night shift hours. After the two other employees left for the night, my manager said for me to hang in there before he left. Then the station started to become very quiet. So I was on my laptop watching videos for time to pass. Then I saw a customer enter the store. I greeted them as they passed me, and then they went to do stuff I couldn't see. Then, after a little, the guy approaches the counter and asks to pay for his item. Then he left the building. Then that was when I figured out this was going to be an easy shift. But shortly after the guy left, I started to hear this noise. I couldn't tell exactly, but it sounded like a heavy box being dragged. At first, I thought it was coming from the neighbor's house. But then, the noises, they were getting louder and louder each second. Then finally, the sound ended right around the corner. I didn't want to leave the station for my safety, but I had to get rid of whoever that was loitering on the property. so I had to go outside as scared as I was. So I entered the outside darkness. The light from the building couldn't fill out most of the surroundings, but I was able to see enough to walk around for at least 20 feet away. So I started to search for whoever that was making that noise. I couldn't hear anything other than the night creatures, but I did, however, find something. There were these marks on the floor that looked like it was being dragged. It was heading towards the back of the building. So I slowly circled towards the back, expecting to find something. But when I got there, I didn't see anything back there. Then I noticed something over by the trash bins. It was wide open. I swore it was closed, and the manager always hated it being open. So I approached the bin to close it back up. Then I noticed something inside it. It looked like it was a fresh dead body. But just as I saw the body, I suddenly felt someone cover my mouth. I turned around to see the same guy that came into the store earlier. He was trying to pass me out, so I tried to take my pin and stab the guy with the sharp side. He let go of me after he screamed from the pain. Then I ran back into the store and locked the place down. I called the police to report the guy, but as I was doing so, I heard the guy scream threats towards me as he circled the building. Then he started to bash at the windows, and I actually saw them cracking up. Just as the glass was about to break, I saw the familiar red and blue sirens. The man cursed before he tried to escape with his red car. I have never been more grateful to see the police arrive that fast. They took down the description of the man, then they watched the store and myself for the rest of the night. And when the morning finally came, I was ready to finally head home. I thanked the police once again before I started my drive away. I think I learned my lesson to always take my job seriously, because I could have lost my life from the mistakes I made. So I am very glad I survived that whole night. It was a long time ago when this happened. I was doing my job at a night shift at my local mini market. I remember I was doing stock work for the past hour. Then it was time for me to take my break. And nobody was in the store at the moment, so I went over towards the back of the area to relax before going back to work. So a few minutes passed with me still relaxing until I started to hear light footsteps. It sounded like these footsteps were to be sneaking around, but when I looked back outside, there was nobody to be seen, so I assumed that there was somebody outside. So I went back in to relax a little bit. But shortly after it left my mind, it happened again. Footsteps, but louder. Now I was thinking someone was loitering around, so I go back outside to find out whoever it was. And I found this guy that looked to be in his early 20s. At first, I was about to tell him that he had to leave, but then he interrupted me, asking for help. He told me he needed spare change and a phone call, but it did seem very suspicious at the time. I didn't want to give a stranger my phone, but I did look for some cash. I checked my wallet, and I didn't find anything but for my cards. I was about to tell the guy I didn't have anything, but when I looked back up, he wasn't in front of me. Then I suddenly felt getting kicked from behind, and then I fell onto the concrete floor. I looked from behind. The guy now had a gun pointing it at me. He then told me to give him everything I had that was valuable. I didn't hesitate. I gave him all my stuff that I had in my pockets. Then he started to take it all, but the gun still on my forehead. After he was done, that was when he finally left the area. But I was so shocked from what had just happened. I didn't really feel safe anymore, so I decided to leave early. I left a message for my boss and explained the situation as I drove. You thought it would have ended there, but unfortunately, no. The very next day, I turned on the news. Then suddenly, I was breaking news about the store that I was working in last night. Apparently the store was broken into, and many things were stolen from the place. I then realized I gave the key to the place to the man that robbed me. Then I looked at my phone to see my boss sending many messages. All of them were angry texts about me not taking care of the store, but I didn't want to do this anymore. For my own safety, I had to quit the job. This was a very bad experience in my life, and trust me when I say never to trust strangers no matter what, and that people aren't who they really seem.